Sarah Mitchell had always found peace in the mechanical precision of firearms maintenance. The military training facility buzzed with activity around her, but she remained focused on the rifle in her hands. Each adjustment was deliberate, each measurement exact. The morning sun streamed through the high windows of the armory, casting long shadows across the workbenches where other soldiers cleaned their weapons. She had been working for nearly 2 hours, methodically checking the scope alignment and trigger mechanisms of 3 different rifles. Her fingers moved with practiced efficiency, years of training evident in every motion. Sarah had joined the Army straight out of high school, driven by a desire to serve her country and prove herself in a male-dominated field. Now, 5 years later, she had earned respect as one of the most skilled marksmen in her unit. The sound of boots on concrete broke her concentration. A group of soldiers entered the armory, their voices echoing off the metal walls. Among them was Marcus Rodriguez, a sniper with a reputation for both exceptional skill and an oversized ego. He had recently returned from a deployment overseas, bringing with him stories of impossible shots and dangerous missions. Marcus noticed Sarah immediately. She was the only woman in the room, working alone at her station with an intensity that set her apart from the casual banter of the other soldiers. He had heard whispers about her shooting abilities, but like many of his peers, he remained skeptical. In his experience, women soldiers were often assigned to support roles rather than combat positions. Sarah could feel his gaze but continued her work, refusing to be distracted. She had faced this kind of scrutiny countless times before. Every woman in the military had to prove herself repeatedly, earning respect through performance rather than assumption. She had learned early in her career that the best response to doubt was demonstration. The rifle she was currently calibrating was a precision instrument, capable of accuracy at distances that would challenge even experienced marksmen. Sarah understood every component, every variable that could affect performance. Temperature, humidity, wind speed, ammunition weight, all factors she had studied extensively during her specialized training. Marcus approached her workstation, his curiosity overcoming his initial dismissiveness. He watched as she made minute adjustments to the scope, her movements confident and sure. The other soldiers in the group followed, forming a loose circle around her workspace. The conversation in the room gradually quieted as attention focused on the interaction developing between the two. Sharpshooters. Sarah completed her final calibration check and set the rifle down carefully. She looked up for the first time since Marcus had entered, meeting his gaze directly. There was no challenge in her expression, only the quiet confidence of someone who knew her capabilities. She had spent years perfecting her skills, not for recognition or approval, but because excellence was its own reward. The tension in the room was palpable. Other soldiers sensed the potential for confrontation, though Sarah showed no signs of aggression. She simply returned to organizing her equipment, preparing to move to the shooting range for testing. Her routine was methodical, professional, and completely focused on the task at hand. Marcus studied her technique, noting the precision of her movements and the care with which she handled the weapons. Despite his preconceptions, he found himself impressed by her obvious competence. However, his competitive nature and desire to maintain his status as the unit's premier marksman prevented him from simply walking away. The moment stretched as the two soldiers regarded each other, each recognizing skill in the other while maintaining their respective positions. Sarah had no interest in proving anything to Marcus, but she also had no intention of backing down from any reasonable challenge. Her training and experience had prepared her for moments like this, where her abilities would be questioned simply because of her gender. The armory fell completely silent as Marcus made his decision about what to say next. His reputation was built on his ability to outshoot anyone in the unit, and he had never been challenged by a woman before. The other soldiers waited, sensing that something significant was about to happen. Sarah finished packing her equipment and slung the rifle over her shoulder. She was ready to head to the range, with or without an audience. Her confidence was not born of arrogance but of countless hours of practice and proven performance in both training and real-world situations. She had nothing to prove to anyone, but she was always ready to demonstrate. her skills when necessary. The stage was set for a confrontation. That would test not only marksmanship abilities but also preconceptions about gender roles in the military. Sarah's quiet competence was about to meet Marcus's bold confidence in a challenge that would surprise everyone present. Marcus stepped closer to Sarah's workstation, a slow grin spreading across his face. His voice cut through the silence with casual arrogance that immediately drew everyone's attention. "Show me you can hit that target," he said, pointing toward the distant shooting range visible through the armory windows. The challenge hung in the air like smoke from a fired round. Sarah paused, her hand still resting on her rifle case. She had anticipated this moment from the second Marcus walked into the room. His reputation preceded him: 3 confirmed kills at over 1,000 meters, numerous commendations, and an ego that matched his skill level. She knew he expected her to either back down or accept a challenge she couldn't win. The other soldiers exchanged glances, recognizing the significance of what was happening. Sergeant Davis, who had been quietly observing from across the room, moved closer. He had trained both Marcus and Sarah, and he knew their capabilities better than anyone else in the unit. His weathered face showed concern, not for the outcome of any competition, but for the potential disruption to unit cohesion. Marcus gestured broadly toward the range, his confidence on full display. "I'm talking about the 1,000-meter target," he clarified, his voice carrying just enough volume to ensure everyone in the armory could hear. 3 shots, best grouping wins. Unless you think that rifle you've been babying isn't up for the challenge. Sarah's expression remained neutral, but internally she was calculating. The 1,000-meter target was a standard challenge shot for qualified snipers, well within her capabilities under normal conditions. However, the current weather conditions were less than ideal. A crosswind had been building all morning, and the temperature was rising, creating heat mirages that would complicate long-range shooting. Private Johnson, one of the younger soldiers, whispered to his companion. "This is going to be interesting." Word was already spreading beyond the armory as soldiers, who had heard about the challenge, began making their way toward the shooting range. What had started as a routine morning of weapons maintenance was transforming into an impromptu competition. Sarah finally responded, her voice calm and measured. "The wind conditions aren't ideal for precision shooting at that range," she observed, not as an excuse but as a factual assessment. She had learned to evaluate every variable that could affect shot placement, and honesty about environmental factors was crucial to consistent performance. Marcus laughed, interpreting her observation as hesitation. "Wind affects everyone equally," he replied. "A real sniper adapts to conditions instead of waiting for perfect weather." His comment drew nods from several of the observing soldiers, who were beginning to take sides in the developing rivalry. Sarah considered her options carefully. She could decline the challenge, which would likely be interpreted as admission that she lacked confidence in her abilities. Alternatively, she could accept and risk a public failure that would undermine her standing in the unit. Neither option was particularly appealing, but she had faced similar situations before. Sergeant Davis stepped forward, his authoritative presence commanding immediate attention. "If you two are determined to do this," he said, looking between Marcus and Sarah, "we'll do it properly. Official range procedures, safety protocols, and witness scoring." His intervention transformed what could have been a casual competition into a formal demonstration. The sergeant's involvement changed the dynamics considerably. What had begun as Marcus's impulsive challenge was now becoming an official test of skill between 2 of the unit's most capable marksmen. Sarah realized that backing down was no longer an option. Too many people were watching, and her reputation would suffer regardless of the reasonableness of her concerns about the conditions. Marcus was clearly pleased with this development. He thrived on attention and competition, and the growing audience only increased his confidence. He had never been outshot by anyone in his unit, and he saw no reason to expect different results today. His recent deployment had only reinforced his belief in his superior abilities. Sarah nodded slowly, accepting the inevitable. "Standard competition rules," she agreed, her voice steady despite the pressure she felt from the watching soldiers. 3 shots, measured grouping. Witness scoring. She had competed in military marksmanship competitions before, and understood the importance of establishing clear parameters. The crowd of soldiers began moving toward the shooting range, excited by the prospect of witnessing a genuine test of skill between two elite marksmen. Conversations buzzed with speculation about the outcome, bets were quietly placed, and everyone seemed to have an opinion about who would emerge victorious. As Sarah gathered her equipment for the walk to the range, she felt the familiar calm that settled over her before any serious shooting. Her years of training had taught her to channel pressure into focus, transforming nervous energy into steady concentration. She had nothing to prove to Marcus or anyone else, but she was determined not to disappoint herself. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test more than just marksmanship skills. It would challenge assumptions, reveal character, and potentially reshape the dynamics within their entire unit. The shooting range stretched out before them like an arena, with targets positioned at various distances across the flat terrain. The 1,000-meter target appeared as a small dark circle against the earthen backstop, barely visible to the naked eye. Sarah and Marcus took their positions at adjacent shooting stations, each beginning their pre-shot routines with methodical precision. Word had spread quickly throughout the base, and soldiers from different units had gathered to witness the competition. The crowd formed a respectful distance behind the firing line, their conversations creating a low buzz of anticipation. Some had never seen either shooter in action, while others had strong opinions about who would emerge victorious. Sarah began her preparation by studying the environmental conditions through her spotting scope. The crosswind was stronger than she had initially estimated, gusting between 12 and 15 miles per hour from the east. Heat mirages were beginning to dance above the ground at the longer distances, creating visual distortions that would require careful compensation. Marcus was conducting his own assessment, but with notably more confidence and less apparent concern about the challenging conditions. He adjusted his rifle's position on the shooting rest and settled into his firing stance with practiced ease. His pre-shot routine was efficient and confident, reflecting years of experience in various combat environments. Sergeant Davis positioned himself between the two shooting stations with a spotting scope and rangefinder. As the senior non-commissioned officer present, he would serve as the official observer and scorer for the competition. His presence lent gravity to what might otherwise have been dismissed as a casual rivalry between peers. The range safety officer verified that both shooters understood the rules and safety protocols. Each would fire 3 shots at the 1,000-meter target, with scoring based on the tightest grouping measured from center to center of the bullet holes. Wind flags positioned along the range provided visual references for environmental conditions. Though experienced shooters relied primarily on their own observations, Sarah loaded her first round carefully, checking the cartridge for any visible defects before chambering it smoothly. Her rifle was a precision instrument that she had personally modified and tested extensively. Every component had been selected for maximum accuracy, from the custom trigger to the high-quality scope that provided clear target resolution at extreme distances. Marcus displayed equal care in his preparation, though his movements carried an air of casual confidence that suggested this was routine for him. He had participated in numerous shooting competitions during his military career and had rarely finished anywhere other than first place. His rifle was similarly customized, reflecting his personal preferences developed through extensive field experience. The crowd had grown larger as more soldiers learned about the competition. Among them were several officers who had come to observe, including Captain Williams, who commanded both Sarah and Marcus's unit. His presence added another layer of significance to the event, as performance in front of command could influence future assignment and promotion opportunities. Sarah took her position behind her rifle, adjusting her body alignment and breathing pattern to achieve maximum stability. She had learned to control her heart rate through focused breathing, reducing the physiological factors that could affect shot placement. Her eye relief was perfect, her cheek weld consistent, and her grip pressure exactly as she had practiced thousands of times. Marcus settled into his own firing position with equal precision, though his demeanor remained more relaxed than Sarah's intense concentration. He had always been a natural shooter, someone who seemed to hit targets effortlessly while others struggled with the technical aspects of long-range marksmanship. His confidence was built on a foundation of consistent success. Through her scope, Sarah could see the target clearly despite the distance. The black circle appeared crisp against the white background, though the heat mirages created slight distortions that required her to time her shots carefully. She began calculating her holdovers for both wind deflection and bullet drop, mental mathematics that had become second nature through extensive practice. The silence stretched as both shooters completed their final preparations. Conversations among the spectators gradually died away as everyone realized the competition was about to begin. The only sounds were the distant fluttering of wind flags and the occasional metallic click of rifle adjustments. Sergeant Davis raised his binoculars to observe the targets, while the range safety officer prepared to call the shots. The formal nature of the competition had transformed what began as a casual challenge into something approaching an official marksmanship trial. Both shooters seemed to recognize the increased stakes and were treating the event with appropriate seriousness. Sarah closed her eyes briefly, centering herself mentally before the challenge ahead. She had visualized this shot sequence dozens of times, imagining various wind and lighting conditions. Her preparation was complete, her equipment was ready, and her mind was focused solely on the task of placing 3 bullets as close together as possible on a target. Nearly 2/3 of a mile away, the moment of truth was approaching, and everyone present understood they were about to witness something exceptional, regardless of which shooter performed better. The range safety officer's voice cut through the morning air with professional clarity. "Shooters, you may commence firing when ready. 3 shots each, unlimited time." His announcement marked the official beginning of the competition that had captured the attention of nearly half the base personnel. Marcus positioned himself first, his movements deliberate but confident. He had won the coin toss for shooting order and chose to fire first, believing that setting a strong initial standard would put psychological pressure on Sarah. His breathing steadied as he acquired the target through his scope, making minute adjustments for the crosswind. He estimated at the target location. The crowd fell completely silent as Marcus prepared for his first shot. Even the distant sounds of base operations seemed to fade away, leaving only the whisper of wind across the range. Through his scope, the target appeared as a small black dot, wavering slightly in the heat mirages that had intensified as the morning progressed. Marcus' single quotes as first shot broke with surprising suddenness, the sharp crack of the rifle echoing across the range. The recoil was absorbed smoothly by his shooting position, and he immediately cycled the bolt to chamber his second round while Sergeant Davis observed the target through high-powered optics to spot the bullet's impact. "Hit! Center ring, 11 o'clock, Davis called out, his voice carrying clearly to both the shooters and the spectators. The crowd murmured with appreciation. Marcus had started strong with a shot that appeared to be very close to the target center. Despite the challenging wind conditions, Marcus smiled slightly at the confirmation but maintained his concentration for the second shot. He had noticed a brief lull in the wind flags and wanted to take advantage of the momentarily calmer conditions. His trigger finger applied steady rearward pressure until the rifle fired again, the second shot following within 30 seconds of the first. "Hit, center ring, 12 o'clock, Davis announced. The second shot had impacted even closer to the target center, suggesting that Marcus was reading the wind conditions accurately and making appropriate adjustments. The spectators exchanged impressed comments about his performance under pressure. Marcus's third shot came after a longer pause as he waited for another favorable wind condition. When it arrived, he took it immediately, his trigger control as smooth as his previous shots. The rifle cracked for the final time in his string, and everyone waited for the spotter's call. "Hit, center ring, 1 o'clock, Davis reported. Marcus had completed his string with 3 shots clustered tightly in the center of the target, demonstrating the skill that had earned his reputation as an elite marksman. The grouping appeared to measure less than 4 inches. An exceptional performance at 1,000-meter distance, the crowd's reaction was notably enthusiastic, with several soldiers offering congratulations to Marcus as he cleared his rifle and stepped back from the firing line. He acknowledged the praise with characteristic confidence, though he maintained his focus on Sarah's upcoming performance. He knew that his shooting had been good, but not perfect. Now it was Sarah's turn. She moved to her firing position with quiet determination, showing no visible reaction to Marcus's excellent performance. She had observed his shots carefully, noting the wind conditions he had encountered and the timing of his decisions. This information would help her understand the current environmental factors. Sarah's pre-shot routine was noticeably more deliberate than Marcus's had been. She spent additional time studying the wind flags positioned along the range, looking for patterns in the gusting conditions that might provide opportunities for accurate shots. Her breathing was controlled and rhythmic as she settled behind her rifle. Through her scope, Sarah could see Marcus's 3 bullet holes clustered near the center of the target. His grouping was indeed impressive, and she realized that matching or beating his performance would require near-perfect execution under difficult conditions. However, she felt no intimidation, only the familiar calm that preceded her best. Shooting, Sarah's first shot surprised even herself with its timing. She had been waiting for a wind lull when her natural breathing cycle aligned perfectly with a moment of calm. The trigger broke cleanly, and she rode the recoil while maintaining her sight picture to observe any trace of the bullet's flight path. "Hit, center ring, 9 o'clock, Davis called out. Sarah's first shot had impacted on the opposite side of the target from Marcus's group, but appeared to be equally close to the center. The different impact locations suggested she was reading the wind conditions differently than he had, but with similar accuracy, the spectators were now completely absorbed in the competition. Many had expected Marcus to dominate easily, but Sarah's first shot demonstrated that she was capable of matching his performance. The tension increased as everyone realized they were witnessing a genuine contest between 2 exceptional marksmen. Sarah chambered her second round and resumed her firing position. Her concentration absolutely focused on the task at hand. She had proven to herself and the observers that she belonged in this competition, but 2 more shots remained before any conclusions could be drawn about the final outcome. The pressure was building with each shot. But both competitors had demonstrated they possessed the technical skill and mental fortitude necessary for precision shooting at extreme distances. Sarah's second shot required patience as the wind conditions had become more erratic. She watched the flags along the range carefully, noting how the gusts were affecting different distances differently. The wind near the firing line might be calm, while stronger currents affected the bullet's path downrange. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger as she waited for the right moment. The crowd had grown restless during the extended pause, but Sergeant Davis maintained strict range discipline, ensuring that no one spoke or moved in a way that might distract the shooter. Professional marksmanship required absolute concentration, and even experienced soldiers sometimes forgot how much external factors could affect performance at extreme distances. When Sarah's rifle finally fired, the shot surprised everyone with its timing. She had found a brief window between wind gusts and taken advantage immediately. Her follow-through was textbook perfect, maintaining her sight picture long enough to observe the bullet's trace through her scope before cycling the bolt for her final round. "Hit, center ring, 8 o'clock, Davis announced. Sarah's second shot had impacted even closer to the center than her first, suggesting she was adapting successfully to the challenging conditions. Her grouping was developing on the opposite side of the target from Marcus's shots, but with equal precision. Marcus watched Sarah's performance with growing respect and concern. Her shooting was clearly at the same level as his own, and her patience in waiting for favorable conditions demonstrated tactical understanding that went beyond mere technical skill. He realized that his assumption about her abilities had been completely wrong. The competition had evolved into something neither shooter had expected. What Marcus had intended as a demonstration of his superiority had become a genuine test of skill between equals. The spectators sensed this shift in dynamic, and conversations quieted as everyone recognized They were witnessing something exceptional. Sarah prepared for her final shot with the same methodical approach she had used throughout the string. However, the pressure was now significantly greater. Her first two shots had proven she belonged in this competition, but the final shot would determine whether she could actually win it. Marcus's grouping remained the standard to beat. The wind flag showed a complex pattern of air currents, with different velocities at various points along the range. Sarah's challenge was to predict how these conditions would affect her bullet during the nearly 2-second flight time to the target. She had made the necessary calculations, but execution would require perfect timing and technique. Several minutes passed as Sarah waited for optimal conditions. The crowd's patience was wearing thin, but she remained focused solely on environmental factors. When the wind flags finally aligned in a favorable pattern, she took the shot immediately, her trigger control as smooth as her previous efforts. "Hit, center ring, 7 o'clock," Davis called out. Sarah's final shot had impacted closer to the target center than either of her previous shots, completing a grouping that appeared remarkably tight for the challenging conditions. The crowd erupted in surprised applause. Recognizing exceptional marksmanship regardless of the final scoring, Sergeant Davis retrieved measuring equipment and began the formal process of determining the official results. Both groupings appeared extremely close in size, requiring precise measurement to determine a winner. The tension among spectators was palpable as everyone waited for the announcement that would conclude the competition. Marcus remained outwardly confident, but privately he acknowledged that Sarah's shooting had been impressive. Her final shot, in particular, demonstrated the kind of precision that separated good marksmen from exceptional ones. He had underestimated her abilities completely, and the realization was both surprising and educational. As the measuring continued, conversations among the spectators revealed changing opinions about the likely outcome. Many who had expected Marcus to win easily were now reconsidering their assessments. Sarah had demonstrated that gender was irrelevant when it came to marksmanship excellence. Earning respect through performance rather than assumption, the formal measurement process took several minutes as Sergeant Davis carefully determined the center-to-center distances for both groupings. Professional competitions required absolute accuracy in scoring, and any dispute about the results would undermine the credibility of the entire event. Both shooters waited patiently for the official announcement. Captain Williams had been observing the entire competition with interest. As the unit commander, he was always pleased to see his soldiers demonstrating exceptional skills, regardless of who emerged victorious. The quality of shooting displayed by both Marcus and Sarah reflected well on the unit's training standards and individual dedication to excellence. Sarah cleared her rifle and secured her equipment while waiting for the results. She felt satisfied with her performance regardless of the final scoring. She had proven to herself and everyone present that she could compete successfully against the unit's top marksmen under challenging conditions. The experience had been valuable regardless of the outcome. The moment of decision was approaching as Sergeant Davis completed his measurements and prepared to announce the official results. Sergeant Davis straightened from his measuring position at the target, his expression carefully neutral as he prepared to announce the official results. The crowd had grown to include nearly 100 soldiers from various units, all waiting to learn the outcome of what had become the most talked about shooting competition in recent base history. "Marcus Rodriguez," Davis called out, his voice carrying clearly across the range. 3 shots, grouping measures 4 1/8 inches center to center. The announcement drew appreciative murmurs from the crowd, recognizing that such accuracy at 1,000 meters represented exceptional marksmanship skill under any conditions. Marcus nodded with satisfaction, confident that his performance had been strong enough to secure victory. 4 inches at 1,000 meters was shooting that few soldiers on the base could match, and he had accomplished it under challenging wind, conditions that would have defeated less experienced marksmen. The sergeant paused before continuing with the second measurement, building suspense among the spectators who sensed they were about to witness something significant. His careful attention to the measuring process had already suggested that the competition was closer than many had expected. "Sarah Mitchell," Davis announced, his voice slightly louder to ensure everyone could hear the crucial result. 3 shots, grouping measures 3 7/8 inches center to center. The announcement was followed by a moment of stunned silence as the implications became clear to everyone present. Sarah had won the competition by a quarter inch, demonstrating superior accuracy under the same challenging conditions that had tested both shooters. The margin was small but decisive, representing the difference between exceptional shooting and truly elite performance. The crowd erupted in surprised but enthusiastic applause. Marcus stood motionless for several seconds, processing the unexpected result. He had been outshot by someone he had initially dismissed, and the experience was both humbling and educational. His assumption that gender predicted shooting ability had been proven completely wrong by someone whose skill exceeded his own. Captain Williams stepped forward to address both shooters, recognizing that the competition had significance beyond simple marksmanship. "Outstanding shooting by both of you," he announced to the assembled crowd. "This is exactly the kind of excellence we expect from our unit, regardless of who demonstrates it." Sarah accepted congratulations graciously but without excessive celebration. She had proven her point through performance rather than argument, earning respect in the most convincing way possible. Her victory was particularly meaningful because it had been achieved under public scrutiny and challenging conditions. The crowd began dispersing, but many soldiers approached Sarah individually to offer congratulations and express their surprise at the outcome. Several admitted they had expected Marcus to win easily, acknowledging that their preconceptions had been proven wrong by the demonstration they had just witnessed. Marcus eventually approached Sarah, extending his hand in genuine respect. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly, his earlier arrogance replaced by honest acknowledgement of her superior performance. "I made assumptions that were unfair and inaccurate. You're a better shooter than I am, and you proved it when it mattered." Sarah shook his hand, appreciating his willingness to acknowledge the outcome gracefully. "We're all on the same team," she replied. "Competition makes everyone better, regardless of who wins on any particular day. Your shooting was exceptional too. This could have gone either way." Sergeant Davis joined their conversation, offering his perspective as someone who had trained both shooters. "This is why we test our assumptions through performance," he observed. "Talent doesn't recognize demographics, and skill is developed through dedication regardless of who possesses it." The competition's outcome had broader implications beyond the immediate participants. Word spread quickly throughout the base about Sarah's victory, challenging assumptions and changing perceptions about women's capabilities in combat roles. Her performance became a talking point that influenced attitudes and opened minds. The following weeks, Sarah noticed a shift in how she was treated by her peers. The quiet respect she had earned through consistent performance was now enhanced by public recognition of her exceptional abilities. She was included more frequently in advanced training opportunities and sought out for her expertise. Marcus also benefited from the experience, though in different ways. Being defeated by someone he had underestimated taught him valuable lessons about humility and the dangers of preconception. His shooting improved as he adopted some of Sarah's methodical preparation techniques, and his leadership style became more inclusive. The shooting competition became legendary within their unit, referenced whenever discussions arose about capability and potential. Sarah's victory demonstrated that excellence could emerge from unexpected sources, and that true professionals recognize talent regardless of its packaging. Years later, both Sarah and Marcus would advance in their military careers, with their shared experience serving as a foundation for mutual respect and professional development. The challenge that began as an attempt to prove superiority had instead revealed the importance of recognizing and nurturing talent wherever it appeared. The lesson resonated far beyond that single day on the shooting range, influencing attitudes and opening opportunities for others who might otherwise have been underestimated. Based on appearance rather than ability,